Next, let's talk about pedigrees. A pedigree is a chart that shows a pattern of inheritance for a trait. More on how we organize that chart in a minute. First, 3 possible patterns of inheritance. First, we have autosomal dominant. Both parents show the trait, but at least one child does not have the trait. A great way to recognize whether or not inheritance is autosomal dominant is that the rare trait is actually dominant. Remember that piebald example we did earlier in the course. To be piebald is dominant, but most people aren't piebald. So the rare trait, if you recognize that the rare trait is actually dominant, and the normal trait, to be normal, is recessive, that's a great indication that the inheritance is autosomal dominant. And we'll see an example of that later. Our next pattern of inheritance is autosomal recessive, where 2 parents without the trait had a child with the trait. This is what you're more used to recognizing. And the third is the sex-linked recessive. Typically, only males show the trait. Very rare for a female to show a sex-linked recessive trait. When setting up a pedigree chart, first thing you have to remember is, what does autosomal mean? Autosomal is a chromosome that is not a sex chromosome. So for our first 2 patterns of inheritance above, these would be traits handed down in genes contained in 44 of the other 46 chromosomes that you have that aren't your 2 sex chromosomes. Whereas in the third pattern of inheritance, the sex-linked recessive is only passed along in that 45 and 46 chromosome, the 2 sex chromosomes, specifically on the X chromosome as discussed earlier. When organizing your chart, we have some traditional symbols that we use, and for that, males are always boxes, squares. Females are always circles. And if the box or the circle is shaded in, that means that the individual is affected for that trait, or in other words, possesses that trait. Okay? So an unshaded box means the individual doesn't have the trait, the phenotype for that trait. The shaded box means the individual does show the phenotype for that trait, whatever it is we're discussing. Let's pause a moment here and take a look at a video that does a nice job showing how a pedigree is set up for human hair color.